Hi, this is Laureen, and I'm doing another video. If you'll give me just a second to clear center and balance my energy, we'll get started. So, there has been a lot of information coming in. A lot of information came in when I was clearing my energy. A lot of information came in last weekend. That was a little frustrating, so I didn't do the video till I could really work on making sure I can maintain balance while I'm talking about that information. Should have come up, but so much comes in that I have difficulty figuring out what should be discussed. And I don't know why I always do that, because in the end I just allow the flow of energy, right? But as it's coming in, it's very overwhelming, and I think a lot about how do I sift through all this, because I know I have to talk about some of it. So what do I talk about? And so the first thing I'll say is the last video I did, when I was editing it, I was laughing because so first of all, I make the video and then I edit it right after. So I like to post the video the day that I create it. And so sometimes, very rarely, but occasionally it'll be the next day. But I'd say 90% of the time, the videos are posted the day that I make them. And so right after I made the video, I was watching it to edit it, and I was watching the part about the cannonball. What does the cannonball come out of? And I just could not. I laughed so hard because cannonballs come out of cannons, right? But that information just gets blocked. And my daughter and I have an auditory processing disorder, so sometimes there's issues with sequencing of information, which is very common because you learn language through hearing, and if you can't hear right, often there's issues with sequencing of information. So that could be it, or maybe I just was so caught up in the moment, but I was cracking up. I still laugh whenever I watch that part of the video. And then the other part was at the end when I was talking about the betrayal and the assassinations of these special forces soldiers. As I was watching it, I was like, I don't watch the news, and so I get bits of information from different places. And I think there were like 3 different incidences that I was talking about as one, but because I don't watch the news, it's hard for me to discern that. But when I was watching it, it seemed a little disconnected to me. So that implies, or is indicating to me, that there was more than one situation where this happened, and that I was combining the different events and talking about it as if it's one event. So I just wanted to mention that and clarify that. And so give me a second to see where I should start. I'm going to start where with the information that came in when I was clearing my energy. So when I was clearing my energy, the raptors came in and said, first thing I heard from Sebastian was, we've lost a lot of soldiers, a lot of men. And I knew there's a lot of chaos happening in this inner Earth, but I've said that the raptors and the beings in the water are part of Earth, and they are part of transcendence, and they are fortifying Mother Earth with us through the collective consciousness, because we are all part of the same world. So our collective consciousnesses are merging, let's say, And so we are becoming more powerful as a world and as a collective. Um, as a result, I think that has targeted them in a different way than, let's say, a year and a half ago when I was talking about the sent that message. I don't even know when it was, but about staying out of the raptor territory, staying out of their area, because they are going to clear the tunnels, clear the spaces of those negative energies, the cabal people who are trying to get off the surface and leave the planet, and they're trespassing in their areas to do that. So they're going to make sure that doesn't happen. So even if we're chasing after these people trying to capture them, there's a boundary that we need to stop, and we need to let them go into that, and then let the raptors take it from there on. And so that did happen, but currently, right now, this is more of an invasion force going into their area. And it's not all surface military. They showed me this Alpha Draco negative polarity energy moving in and attacking them. So they asked for help. And so and they weren't asking for military help. They're asking for energetic support. And so I just surrounded them with love and light energy and fortified their fields, but also the beings in the water, because if they're struggling, then so are the beings in the water. And so normally these two entities are separate. These two energies live separately. They cohabitate here on Earth, but they respect each other's boundaries. But currently they are working as allies in this endeavor. And so what I'm doing is just sending energetic support to them, but also in the past I've said this event that's happening on Earth, that no other worlds are to intervene. There will be karmic consequences if you intervene. So the beings of love and light that respect those boundaries have honored those boundaries. But what has happened is that now they're being allowed into the inner Earth, not to the surface, because we have to work out our issues on the surface. But they're being allowed into our space, into the inner Earth, to support the raptors and the beings in the water. The raptors and the beings in the water, their transcendent, their transition is different from ours, because I want to say their path and purpose is different, but their path is different. Their purpose is very similar. But they represent different elements of the universe here on this world. And so their presence is important, but how they are evolving and transcending is a little different from ours. So energies, beings of love and light, have been allowed in to help support these energies. So it's important for any surface military individuals who support the secret space program, let's just say that, just that they know that there are energies being allowed now into the center of Mother Earth to support these two communities on Earth. But the boundary still sets, nothing on the surface, nothing on the surface. And so I'm not sure why I'm being asked to speak about this, but I don't like to get into any type of political discussions of current events. Maybe because I was at an appointment, they had the TV on, and and they had the presidential, I don't know what it was, a discussion. The president came on to talk about what's going on in the Ukraine. And so I was kind of a captive audience because I couldn't leave. But he talked about ousting Putin. We have to get rid of Putin and our freedoms. And he said something about in the name of God. And so currently, where we are on this world, I felt like it was incredibly arrogant for our president to think or to even suggest that we try to oust Putin from office. I think, wow, what an ego that he thinks it's our place to do that. And then in the name of God, because God is about ousting leaders from their seats. So we try to cleanse God from our schools, from our government. In God we trust, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And in God, we talk about God in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then in this moment of war, or potential, or the possibility for it, we invoke God as a reason to become violent, to justify violence. The hypocrisy is stifling. What I do when I observe these discussions is a lot of times I shake my head, but I just start noting both sides. What's happening on one side, what's happening on the other side. What would it take to do what he's suggesting? Is it worth the lives to do what he's suggesting? Additionally, why would Putin go into the Ukraine? Why would he do that? And so you have to do research. You have to look into something. I can't just take someone's word for it. I don't care what your title is. I'm going to do my own research. So I have to believe, I just find it highly unlikely that Putin would just walk into the Ukraine just to take it over for no reason. There's got to be a reason. So I would seek that reason out. The fact that we think we have any place there is mind-boggling. I feel like we have no place there, and I don't want to lose my son, my nephew, my cousins, friends in war. There's been enough war. We know that war solves nothing. We went into the Middle East, how long ago? I was in college, I think, when we first started stomping around in there. What came of it? What's changed? Nothing. 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 So why do we want to do this? We don't. But all these politicians have to do is get enough support from the people to to justify their actions. And then our kids go to war, right? So I have a very strong feeling this is not going to go their way. And so when I was walking earlier today, I went for a walk, so I started bringing in love energy. I started showering it down on the earth. I started surrounding it with like a Fibonacci spiral with bright red love, passion, compassion, just surrounding it. And then I saw myself sitting on the earth in the center of a lotus flower that was red. And I'm just, moving the energy, creating, shifting, changing. And all of a sudden, all that red turns blood red. And I got really upset. And I thought to myself, what's happening? Why did it turn blood red? And the message was the attempt at war. The attempts to justify war are going to bring about death. So the death isn't going to come from where you think it's going to come from. Okay, so if I say it out loud, the Russians, Putin isn't going to be the one causing the death. This negative polarity is going to make it look like they're causing the deaths of many individuals to try to justify moving in a more aggressive manner. And so that will be short-lived, but it will happen because they're pulling all the stops. They're doing just about anything because that negative wave of energy that they're riding at the beginning of COVID is dissipating. It's turning into nothing. It's powerless. And so they're trying to create another wave, and they're doing whatever they can. But as we transcend and as this light energy moves into our solar system and onto our world and into our bodies, we aren't as gullible as we used to be. We are awakening to truth, and we are not as easily triggered. And so that was that message, is that there is as I'm sharing love and supporting the world and Mother Earth, that blood red that came through was just showing me that that event is going to happen. But as I was seeing that blood red, I was actually seeing people fall off the planet. And so what that shows me also is this negative, these people who are supporting and moving, trying to drive forward this negative agenda are falling away. They're falling away. And so something just came in and it left. But so one of the things I was watching, Cosmic Disclosure, and I was watching Randy Kramer, the Secret Space Program guy, talk to Tim with Emery. And there was a few things that came up, and I just got really frustrated. And so I had to step back, and I had to find perspective to release the frustration. And one of the things that's really important for people to know, and why it's important for you to understand how to maintain clear, centered, and balanced energy, connect with the higher self, and through that higher self, the divine, to listen to your intuition from the most clearest place, because you have to start discerning between truth and lies. You have to discern between truth and misinformation, or just flat out disinformation. Okay, so I'm watching this and I'm listening to the conversation, and two things come up. One was the psychosis for the collective consciousness, and two was this idea of we don't know what happens after we die, or we don't know if the universe will be reborn once it collapses, I guess, on itself. And so first I would like to address this psychosis, this collective psychosis. I hear it brought up often, and it upsets me, because what I know is they're planting seeds. What I do is I plant seeds of love and light. When that little excerpt of Warriors and Fools that I had in the last video, warriors and scholars. Our warriors should be scholars. Our scholars should be warriors. Otherwise, we're led by fools. And I can't remember the quote, but you know what I'm talking about. And I'll post it again in this video, so you know what I'm talking about. But I sent that to a friend of mine who is one of the best people I've ever met on this planet, ever in my life, but carries a lot of guilt about his past. And I had to impress upon him what a gift he has in his intellect, and what a gift he has in his experience as a warrior, as a soldier, and that he has a perspective that most people don't have, and that makes him invaluable to this world. Once we get through that PTSD and help him to really understand what an incredible person he is and what value he offers, he is one of our greatest assets, but he'll just know he's one of our greatest assets. So I plant seeds when I see people who are struggling. I'm always when I'm working in the homeless community, I'm planting seeds of hope and love, and joy, and possibilities. I'm always doing that. I don't plant seeds of negativity. I'm not making them feel worse, okay? I'm focusing on the positive. So when you say, oh, we run the risk of this collective psychosis, you are planting seeds of a negative nature. That never needs to be addressed, because nobody knows about it. Nobody even considers it, okay? Because if you don't know, then how can you manifest it? Okay? When you plant those seeds, you are increasing the possibility of manifesting it. And so there is an element of control happening. Okay, so we have people who just want us to go into the negative, like way negative. Okay? They want to keep us as slaves and restrained here on Mother Earth. But then there's some people who still want to maintain control, but they want more freedom for themselves. And so if they want more freedom for themselves, they have to give us more freedom, right? And so they're trying to transcend this with an element of control. And they do that by instilling fear. Just little droplets of fear. And so if they keep you in fear, then they keep you feeling like you need them. Okay? And that is what that is. Planting seeds of fear. Oh my goodness, we can't tell everybody, because we might have a collective psychosis where everybody loses their mind. So we need to keep just a little bit at a time. So they're trying to draw it out long enough so they can maintain control and direct transcendence, right? I see it. It's not going to work. They're not in control. They want to be in control. They want to control the path so they can control where they end up, what their role is. No. There will be no psychosis. And not on this timeline. Not on the timeline I'm on. If you want to manifest that on your timeline, then you could take it over there. But it's not happening here. It's not happening here. And this is where you want to be. So That was one thing. And the other thing of planting this seed of, we don't know if there's a God. What was he talking about? These higher level beings that call themselves children of God. Well, they don't call themselves anything. And I've said it in the past, I don't think names are important. I think it's important really to know the vibration of the energy that's coming in. And as long as they're of a high vibration and they come from a place of love and light, then I allow those energies to come in and communicate with me. I allow negative energies to come in and communicate with me now at this place that I'm in, because I can control and protect my energy field. But I don't encourage people to do that, because you need to be able to discern between positive and negative. You need to be able to discern between communication and manipulation. And so if you don't have a strong enough center and a strong enough connection to divinity and your own truth, then you run the risk of being manipulated. But let's just get back to this conversation where he brought up that even these high level beings that live for millions of years don't know, if God, I can't remember how he said it, but I think what I felt was, we don't know if once this iteration of this incarnation of the divine happens, if anything exists, if it just happens and then there's nothing. Okay? Kind of like a lot of people don't know whether or not in this life, after they pass, if there's anything. So atheists believe there's nothing. They just turn into nothing, right? There's no consciousness, there's no soul, nothing. And some people, like me, believe that we, when we pass, we return to source, or our soul returns and goes somewhere, right? So that is also planting seeds of fear. Oh, we don't know what happens. We don't know if divinity or God or the source of all creation exists after this iteration of itself. Well, how come me at this 340, level of consciousness knows unequivocally, without question, that there is a source of all creation and that it is eternal and that it doesn't die? Why do I know that? Because I trust and have faith in something greater than myself. I connect with that thing and I engage it and I communicate with it. Also, I was listening to Michio Kaku talk, and he was talking about how energy doesn't disappear. It doesn't decompose, or not the word, they don't use the word decompose, but it doesn't disappear. It always exists as it is. Frequency, vibration changes the density of energy, I guess. That's how we have a table versus a piece of cotton. The frequency of those energies, of those particles of energy. But it never disappears. It never goes away. It's constant. So every particle of energy carries the light of God in it, carries divinity, the source of all creation. So if every particle of energy carries the Akashic records, carries the memory of God. So how can you, and it won't ever decompose. It won't ever go away. So how could you say we don't know? Because you don't have a formula? Is that it? You don't have a formula? You don't have some type of scientific... That goes back to back in the 90s, I guess. Prove it. We want science to prove it. I don't need science to prove it, first of all. Secondly, science is spirituality and spirituality is science. And as we evolve, we'll see that. We'll know that. But right now, we are not meant to know that. Right now, we are meant to trust and have faith in something greater than ourselves. And if you can't do that, then you're not ready for transcendence. If you can't let go and release the paradigms of this world, then you're not ready for transcendence. You're resisting it. You're holding on to old ways and you're trying to control out of fear of the unknown, because you are trying to control the direction so you know what's happening in the end. We're not meant to know. We're meant to just go with it. We're meant to ride the wave, trust, have faith in something greater than ourselves. So I was incredibly frustrated when I was watching those episodes, and I had to like center myself and listen to the messages I received. And one of the messages I got, or the most important message, was everybody has to answer to someone. Right now, a lot of people are answering to people. And I've said in past videos, those walking the line between light and dark are asked to do the hardest things. They have the hardest burdens, the greatest tasks. That gray area is very difficult. And so the lesson for me was compassion. Have compassion for what these people are going through. Have compassion for what they are being asked to do and say. And so I do that. We need to understand that there are many factions within even this. When I hear that white and black hat, it's so misleading. It's so misleading. And I've said in the past, there's only gray hats, because within the white hat community, there are a lot of black hats. And so if you're calling yourself a white hat and you're moving around within that community, you have to be aware of the fact that there are black hats here. And when I communicate with someone, am I communicating with a black hat or a white hat? Because the negative polarity has been very efficient in moving into all areas of this world. It's pervasive. It's in everything. And on the black hat side, you have white hats. We're just using that term because that's what everybody's using today. You have white hats. So you go into these areas where you're in darkness, having to live as a person within darkness, but you are a white hat. And so you're in fear of being found out and what the consequences could be for you. And you're moving back and forth between two different spaces. It's just stressful. It's just stressful on both sides. So wherever you're at. So I just say that all the hats are gray. And so we all as individuals have to be able to discern light from darkness, positive from negative, what serves our path and purpose, and then what serves the greater good of the whole. Okay? And that's a very difficult role to play. That's a very difficult path and purpose to walk. And so that was the lesson for me as I was watching the show, and I'm getting super frustrated. They're like, you need to have compassion for what people are going through. You don't know what they're doing off camera when they are doing their jobs, right? Whatever that job is, how they have to navigate that. And then when they have to come up in front of a camera and talk, what and how they say it, what they say and how they say it is important. And you don't know what's being asked of them. So that was my lesson. But I think it's important, very important to note that when you plant those seeds of this psychosis, and when you plant these seeds of I don't know, we don't know whether or not this energy or this God or this creator exists after this iteration of this universe comes to an end, those are planting seeds of fear. And I see it and I know it, and I understand the purpose behind it, and I suggest you back out of that and move into a different direction. That's what I would suggest. The next thing is when I talk about these gentlemen in the special forces, there's a lot of layers to the information that comes in. And so I have all this information that came in, but the last video I talked about certain things, and that was all I was asked to talk about. And so this next video I'm going to talk about another thing, and that is how they have implanted or planted these post-hypnotic suggestions to trigger PTSD after you leave the military, after you leave service, after discharge. And so what I said in the past is that they train you and they use you in your whatever capacity that you've been trained in. But then once you're discharged, they want to make sure that you can't use those skills, that someone else can't use those skills. And so they create triggers for to trigger the PTSD. Post-hypnotic suggestions to trigger the PTSD. And you don't have to put someone under hypnosis to do that. Okay, repetitive exposure to certain things will trigger PTSD. And you can see this in any soldier. So the air sirens, alarms. So if these soldiers hear that out in regular civilian society, it will trigger a PTSD response, depending on what they associate that with, right? The cocking of a gun can do that. Just hearing it over and over again. So for me, it's different. When I was a kid, so anytime I felt, I never was protected when I was a child. So I told my mother, Vernon's hurting me. Vernon's hurting us. You know, and she would just say, oh, Vern, don't hurt your sister. Don't hurt your brother. And nothing would change. And I think my dad let my mom deal with my oldest brother because he was her son from a previous marriage, and I don't think he felt like it was his place to intervene. And, you know, it was the 70s, and the women normally did a lot of the child rearing stuff. But he never really intervened in these things. My mom was always took the lead. So she never did anything. I had an uncle who... he's not an uncle, he's my dad's cousin's husband. So in Hawaii, everybody's your like aunts and uncles, and that's true. But he tried to molest me and my brother, and I saw him do some stuff to my cousins. And in the room, we were all in a room, and when he tried to do the same thing to me and my brother, stick his hands down our pants and do some things, I ran out of the room. And I went and I told my mother, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. I went and I told my mother, and she said, all she said was, stay away from him. So she didn't go and tell anybody. She didn't say, stay away from my kid. She didn't fight for us. She didn't try to protect me. She just told me to stay away from him. So I did. And I found out as an adult that he molested a whole bunch of my cousins. And he wasn't blood related, I think. But I go, that doesn't make it any better. And then there was a janitor who took over after Mr. Renfro retired. He was our old janitor when I was in elementary school. And he was... something was wrong. The way he used to look at me, I'm like 9 years old. And I'm like, it freaked me out. And so I never went to... when I was a kid, when they did attendance, one kid would go to the office to turn in attendance, and everybody wanted to do that because you got to leave class, right? I never did that. I never went to the bathroom during class because I was afraid I'd be cornered by him. There was something seriously wrong with this guy. He was, the way he looked, it was coveting. It was very unsettling for me. And I don't know how I would just know things, but I just made sure that I kept myself safe. So nobody really fought for me. I always felt alone. I felt like I had to defend myself. So one of the things that triggers me is if I feel defensive. Everybody, when I was younger, nobody could get within 3 feet of me. You were not allowed within 3 feet of me. And if I felt threatened in any way, I would come at you aggressively, verbally, physically, whatever it would take. But my space, I was kind of like a dog tied to a tree. Like, you can't come into this space. The second you came into this space, then I became incredibly aggressive. And that was just a trigger that I had, because nobody ever kept me safe. I never felt anybody kept me safe. The only place I felt safe was when I sat next to my dad when he was home from work. That was the only place I felt safe, was with my dad. And so that is my trigger. And because nobody ever protected me, when I see somebody else being victimized, I am in it. Like, nobody protected me, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And I know some people get upset about that, that I get involved in things that I shouldn't, but it doesn't matter to me, because nobody should feel alone. No one should feel vulnerable like that, like they have nobody. And it's very awkward to have people all around you and still feel alone and vulnerable. And so I don't allow it when I possibly can do something about it. And so those things can trigger an incredibly aggressive response from me. And I know I don't look it. Most people don't see it coming. But when I was younger, I can be incredibly aggressive. So those are triggers for me. People touching me that I don't want to touch me. I'm like, you have no permission to touch me. I did not tell you you could touch me. Don't touch me. And people don't expect that. In the 90s, hugging became really big. Everybody hugged. There was no more shaking of hands. People were hugging, and I'm like, and when I would kind of step back, people would be like, oh, they would get a little bit offended. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not comfortable with you touching me. I don't know you. And those would be triggers for me. So we all have triggers that will take us to a place and elicit a response that might seem more aggressive than needed, more strong as far as emotion, visceral. I would call it a very visceral response. And those responses were not, nobody hypnotized me. They were just from repeated exposure, right? So I'm telling you this because I can't give you all the situations where these soldiers would be triggered, but repeated exposure to different environments have created these responses, and it triggers the PTSD. It can take you back to places that you thought you had already left, and that you would never go back to. And so part of the healing process of releasing those triggers is going back to the center, understanding, first loving yourself. That's what we talked about last time, is loving yourself. Okay, knowing that you did the best that you could, knowing that you always were someone who never did anything, never gave less than 100%. You were always fully committed to what you were doing in that moment. You always came from a place of goodness, and that's what brought you to the military, trying to help yourself, your family, and defend your country, all the values and that you were taught. The things you were taught to honor and appreciate, freedom, right? That's the big one, freedom, brought you to the military. And then that was kind of bastardized in what you were eventually trained into doing. Your first initial response is you're going to be doing something good, but then realizing over time that maybe it's not so good. Maybe you're a tool of darkness and not really out here doing good. Understanding that that's not your burden to bear, and loving yourself and releasing the emotions associated with that, because you always intended to do the best that you possibly could and to be of service and to help. That was your initial intention. And as property, you really can't, as a soldier, you're property, right? You can't say no. You do what you're told. So from there, after you understand that and work towards releasing that energy, now you have these this PTSD, these post-hypnotic suggestions, these things that trigger you even after you've been out of the service for a while. And how do you reconcile those? And how do you release those? And the first layer, the first step, is that part of release, okay? The next is understanding and accepting that those things were out of your control. You could not stop it. I'm sure there's somebody that says you could have refused, you could have gone AWOL, right? You could have left, right? But the consequences of that are so great, and probably equally or more damaging than following through with what you were ordered to do, right? You would have just chose a different path of shame and sadness and anger, bitterness, right? And so understanding, I think the most important, so let me give you perspective. The most important thing that you can take away is for the why of you going through this is because now you're one of the most powerful sources of energy on this world. And if you can switch that and turn it and drive from the heart center from a place of love, you and 20 other soldiers can be a driving force in changing this planet, and nothing can stop you. So you learned how to master the emotional body. You have mastered the emotional body. And your training in the military was a necessary part of learning how to control and master the emotional body. Now, one of the things I noticed from a couple friends, a few people I know who have trained special forces, is one of the things you have to do is control your emotions. When you go into these situations, you have to be able to control your emotions. You can't let fear, anger, bitterness, whatever you're going through in that moment that's driving you, you can't let any one of them take over your thinking, right? You always have to be centered so you have your thoughts clear and you can do what you are meant to do. And to do that, you have to control every emotion that you're feeling in the moment. That's why you've mastered the emotional body. You can go into these events and come out of these events because you've controlled your emotions. The problem with that is that now every emotion is controlled all the time. You are discharged from the military, you're not doing this work anymore, and still every emotion is controlled, because you have to control all those emotions to control the PTSD. You have to control your emotions to keep the PTSD in check, right? So how do you access that heart? Through the PTSD. When you have all your emotions controlled, right? How do you allow yourself to be vulnerable and open your heart to access that inner power that you have. And that comes from knowing that everything you did came from a place of goodness, regardless of how they tried to bastardize what you did and who you were and how you did it to make you feel guilty or shame or to question. I think the biggest thing is keeping enough information from you to question what you did and why you did it, and never answering that question because it's need to know basis or top secret or above your clearance level, right? Those things prevent you from seeing the big picture and understanding the why of the action that you engaged in and create the PTSD, right? So knowing that regardless of how they try to bastardize, change, manipulate the circumstances, that everything you did came from a place of goodness, knowing that everything you did to survive and to keep each other alive came from a place of love for your fellow man to the left and the right of you, commitment, right? Commitment to each other. Those are all incredibly good things. Like, what drove you to succeed and fulfill your obligation in that event is powerful. And knowing that that all came from goodness, and knowing that whatever was going on around here on the perimeter, the higher ups and what they were having you do and why they were having you do it is not in your control and not your burden to bear. You were a tool, and you were a very effective tool. And so you need to understand that what they gave you was a gift in that training, because now you can turn it around and use it as a tool for goodness for this world and for all the people who are marginalized, belittled, kept down, and that deserve a better life. So the why of why you did the actions or events or whatever you did when you're in the military, I wouldn't really worry about that. To access the heart, you need to focus on all the goodness that you did and how you helped each other and how you did the very best that you could. Even though not everybody always made it back, you always did the best that you could, because you're always trying to keep each other alive. You're all trying to be successful, but also trying to keep each other alive. Okay, and because I'm not talking to each individual, I can't address individual concerns. So I need to speak more generally. But I would say to focus on the goodness that you carry in your heart. Oh, the other thing is, this is probably one of the most important things, and I should have brought it up in the beginning, but every single one of these guys, specifically in the Special Forces, are highly, 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 highly intuitive. Highly intuitive. You may not have known it when you went in. I didn't know it when I was younger. When I was younger, I was very prayerful. I used to pray the rosary all the time. I was raised very Catholic. And when I went away to college, I would go and I'd used to people watch all the time, and I would know what people are talking about. I would know it. Just claircognizance. But I thought I was very observant. I thought I was watching their facial expressions and their body language, and I thought that's what was telling me what, because I was observant. I didn't realize it was claircognizance, right? You may not have known it, and you still may not know it, but you are highly, highly, highly intuitive. That's what keeps you alive. So intellect, coordination, and intuition. Those are the three biggest things, because intuition keeps you alive, but the knowing keeps you alive. Being able to feel before you see, being able to know before you see what's coming is an incredibly strong asset. And that was another, God, I can't believe I forgot this. just left. That's negative energy coming in. I should have left on that tea tree oil. Whenever you tap into your intuition after discharge, this is probably, I should have brought this up so long ago. Whenever you tap into your intuition, it triggers your PTSD. That's another thing that's super important to know. Whenever you tap into your intuition. So even if you're walking into a room and you're feeling people's energy, empathy, and say emotions, that can trigger your PTSD. If you walk into a room and you start picking up someone's conversation and you can't hear them, but you can feel what they're talking about, that can trigger your PTSD. Because what happens is you were trained to use your intuition as a survival tool, as a tool of survival. So as you're moving through wherever you're going, your intuition is like ding, 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 high, super vigilant. Your intuition is on fire. Anytime you guys were out doing something dangerous, on any event, action, whatever you call it, mission, your intuition from the time you leave wherever all the way through it until you come back, your intuition is on fire. What you do, how you do it, you are driven almost 100% by intuition, 90% by intuition. Where to go, you have a direction and in what you're doing and how you're doing it, but how fast you move, how slow you move, where you move, if you need to make adjustments. I can't even, if your friend or your partner is potentially in danger, if you feel someone's coming, you slow your step, you hold your weapon in a different way. All these things have been trained into you, so you do it all intuitively. They call it muscle memory also, okay, when you're loading and unloading, I guess. But how you do something, the way you do something, the when you do something, the why. Why am I pointing in this direction? Because you feel like there might be someone coming from there. Or that's all intuition. Your intuition is deeply rooted in every part of everything you did when you were in the military. And so when you tap into that intuition, it triggers your PTSD. And so how do you break that connection with your intuition and your past and your intuition in violence, your intuition in the traumas of your life, right? You redirect that energy from a place of love, and you know that everything you do when you access that intuition is to help make this world a better place. You're using the tools that you have and that you used in the past for aggression and violence, you're using it for the greater good. And it's not just about what's happening right now. It's about creating the world that we want for our kids, for our grandkids, and future generations, okay? We want a different world, and you have a powerful gift to help create that world. And so always think about that. What do I love so much that I am motivated to create the change that this world needs, to tap into something that's very difficult for me to tap into, because it may bring up past events that I don't want to deal with. Whenever I go to Mary's place to volunteer, I always run the risk of having to talk about being molested as a child, being beaten as a child, having people try to get me into stripping, prostitution, pornography, all in my summer of my 21st year, all at once, like within 3 months. It was crazy. Having people try to kill me, literally, hands around my throat, saying to myself, this is my last breath. I will never get married. I will never have kids. Because these women have all been through, every single one of them have been through one of those things at least. I did a reading. I talked to a young girl. She was like 22 years old. She's like, I will never live in any place with 4 walls. I will never live in a home ever again. ever in my life. And so I knew the second she said that, it's because whatever happened to her was in a room. Nobody could see it. Nobody knew what was going on. She couldn't get help. Okay, so now she will never live she told me she'll never live in a home again, any place with four walls. And so having to talk to her about my own traumas to help her understand that, and not talking about her specific traumas because she didn't tell me what her specific traumas were, but I can tap into that and speak from the peripheral about my experiences and help her understand that we have, some of us have traumatic experiences. It takes a lot of work, but we can work our way out of it and find healing, right? So I knew my traumas had a purpose. So I would access those traumas, talk to people, show them who I was, where I've been, and where I'm going, where I'm at and where I'm going, to give them hope. Okay, so when you understand that what you went through was to help others, and that you're strong enough to live through it, and that you're unstoppable, and that now I understand why I did it, so I could create change in this world and help others to find the beauty that lies within them through the trauma, not in spite of it, because we all went through it. There's nothing we can do about it. We have to work through the trauma. We can't circumvent it. Okay? If you can tap into that part of yourself, and understand that, the purpose, then you become unstoppable. And I'm unstoppable. There's nothing that can stop me. Nobody can use any of my past traumas against me to make me feel less than, weak, fearful, insecure. They can't do it, because I have perspective of those things now. I understand those things, and I understand why. I don't have anger about it anymore. I don't feel shame about the events of my past. I use it to empower me. So if you can find that within yourself, you become a powerful source for change in this world, and then eventually in this universe. Okay? And I see the Jedis. Okay, it's so funny. So I was on the bus, and I was on the bus, and I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden I see 10 people. I see a semicircle of 10 people. I think there were more behind me, but I couldn't see them, and I just focused on these 10 people, and they're sitting when I was a kid, we'd call it Indian style. I guess in yoga they call it is it the lotus position? I'm not sure, but when I was a kid we used to call it Indian style. And they all just look at me and they said, "Okay, what do we do?" And I'm sitting on the bus, and I'm just like in tears, and I was like, "Whoa, I'm on the bus right now. I'm gonna miss my bus stop if I start this right now." But what it was they were asking me for the lesson in driving from the heart. How do we drive from the heart? How do we use that focus that we've been trained on these special military groups? How do we use our heart and create that wave of love and light energy? And so I just looked at the bus, saw which stop I was at and where I had to go, and I just closed my eyes and I started the lesson. We started working towards creating that wave of love and light energy out onto this world, and then blanketing it, actually creating a protective force of love and light energy on the world, on this planet, clearing Mother Earth. So we worked on clearing Mother Earth, creating a protective barrier, and then and fortifying her energy. And then in doing so, we kind of project that love and light energy out into the universe. But the primary lesson was clearing, centering, and balancing the energy, clearing Mother Earth, and then putting up a protective field around her. But I was so happy. I was like, the message got out. I don't know. And so there's two things that happen. One, I know that when I'm asleep I do a lot of work. I do a lot of stuff because I wake up and I'm super fatigued. So the beginning of 2020, I had 3 months where I was literally taking 3 naps a day, anywhere from 3 to 6 hours total, plus the night I'd sleep at night. I was so tired. I literally went in and I meditated and I was like, you need to give me a break right now. I need a break. So I got 2 weeks break and then it was on again and it was intense. And I haven't had that happen again until recently. And I would say in the last month, I've been feeling a lot of fatigue. And so I know that I'm doing stuff when I'm sleeping. I'm having, I don't want to say astral projecting or out of body experiences, because I feel like as soon as I go to sleep, my consciousness takes over and the material physical world that I'm existing in disappears. And then I'm just moving from consciousness. But in these moments, I had 2 moments. This was one of them. They were making me aware of the work I do while I am sleeping. Or in a meditative state. So, and I'm not sure if these energies knew they were coming to me, or if they were in a meditative state and their higher selves came to me, or if they were asleep and they came to me. But it was definitely, there were 10 in front of me and they all came straight in, like the second I closed my eyes, and they're like, what do we do? And so today I connected again and there's at least 10, and I believe there are people behind me also, but I don't see them. And then just like when I first was engaging the summer triangle, there were rows and rows of people going all the way back that were all listening and projecting love and light energy. So accessing the heart center and projecting that wave of love and light energy. So what the message was for me is that all the stuff going on the center, on the top of the earth, that's all part of the theater. Okay, that's the theater of the negative polarity trying to maintain control. The real change is going to happen energetically, not through war, not through a physical battle on this plane of existence. This is a transition through the flow of energy, and the flow of energy is moving to the positive. I don't want to say the W word. I'm not going to say the W word because it isn't an energetic W word. This is about a transition of energy to love and light, and as that force of energy gets greater, we're creating a big huge wave of love and light energy, of positive energy, driving from the heart center. The negative polarity had so many years, decades, centuries to build up that wave of negative energy that started in February of 2020 that came to a head, right? And they're like, we're going to drive that, and hopefully we'll make it through, what happened this year, March 2nd, that full moon that shifted the energy to the positive, gave the positive polarity the power for transcendence. And so they worked on trying to maintain control through that, but now we are building that wave of love and light to finish the transition. That negative stuff, all the negative stuff we went through, was about expelling the negative energy from this world. It was karmic. Humanity had to go through certain things to balance their karma from all the traumas they committed against Mother Earth and all the beings on this world, not just humanity, insects, plants, animals, birds, soil, every particle of energy on this earth has been destroyed, has been damaged, has been abused. And so this whole cycle that we've gone through of COVID is about expelling the negative energy. It's about releasing the negative energy. It's about balancing karma. And it's about transcendence. People choosing either creations of man or the creator of man. Okay, what have you chosen? Have you chosen to have faith in things created by man? Or have you chosen to have faith in the creator of the universe, the creator of all things? Okay, that is, we're going through a divergence of polarities, and this is the end of that, right? And I would like to say that there's more time. I've had people post that things that were misleading, but the decision has pretty much been made. Everything that says is it's done. It's done. Everybody has made their choice where they're going to go, whether they're going to continue incarnating on Earth or whether they're going to move to a new collective and incarnate in the Cepheus constellation. Universal law says you have to match the vibration of Mother Earth. If you are here on this plane and you have not matched the vibration of Mother Earth, that's what the people are falling off the planet, are not matching the vibration of Mother Earth. You cannot stay here. And as these negative energies, continue to act in this way, they are manifesting their world in Cepheus. They are manifesting the world that they will incarnate on in their next lifetime in the Cepheus constellation. It's just the way the universe works. It's not punishment. It just, if you can't stay here because your vibration does not match Mother Earth, then you have to go somewhere else. And so you are creating the world that you will live in the Cepheus constellation. It's as simple as that. And again, it's not punishment. It's just how the universe works. There's not really anything else coming to me to say right now. I'll just add that I don't know if other people can see how time stretches and contracts, but I'm seeing a lot of slowing of time, and it's just, to me, the negative polarity trying to draw out as much time as they possibly can to try to turn things around so that they can prevail. Because the energy is shifting it's just so great. The shifting energy is so great. It's really hard to make predictions on time, when things will happen. But I think astrology is probably the best tool that we have right now, because the archetypes are so accurate. If you have somebody who's really good at reading, first of all, the archetypes, but then also are strong in their intuition, and so that they can feel where the movement's going between the interactions. When they talk about squares and T-squares and aspects, all that stuff I know nothing about, but you have to be able to read how one influences the other. And I watch Pam Gregory. I think she's fabulous, and her intuition is really good. And then Braca Goldsmith is a little different in how she conveys information, but still super accurate, because they're both super strong in their intuition. So not just in their knowing of and understanding of astrology, but the intuition, the interpretation is very, very good. And then I'm going to put that video from, I think it's Sergeant Horton. I put it on a long time ago, but it's about the power structure the underlying power structure that nobody's aware of, and I think it's important for you to know, to understand what's happening. It's a long video, but it's very good. And I'm just going to end by saying thank you for the support, because when I closed my eyes and I saw those men sitting there and just saying, what do we do? It was super emotional. And I was incredibly grateful. So thank you. And that's all. Thank you.